In this video, we will go over the basic terminology that all users should be familiar with regard to the timeline. When working with the timeline, very often you will also have a movie window that goes with it. It is important to note that the timeline is only the lower window here below. The movie above is actually its own separate window. Together, the timeline and the movie window typically make up what is known as a movie package. Alright, so now we're just going to go over some of the key elements that we have here. And I'm going to start with the close, minimize, and zoom buttons, which are the red, yellow, and green buttons near the top left corner of most Mac application windows. These colors will only show up when you are looking at the current selected window, which, as we can see here, means that my timeline is currently selected, as opposed to my movie window, which only has gray buttons. Now, anytime I click on the red close button on the timeline, both the timeline and the movie window will close. Notice that this normally doesn't actually quit Studiocode, as we can see by the fact that I still have my Studiocode menu bar and the spotlight under my icon on the dock. So I'll open my file back up, and next we have the yellow minimize button. When I click on that, we can see that my timeline and movie window both get minimized down to my dock. And if we click on the timeline on the dock, it will open back up. Last is the green zoom button. If I click on the green button, my timeline will expand to use all of the available space on my desktop. Now, before we move on, just a quick note on the movie window. Because this is technically a separate window from my timeline, it has its own set of colored buttons. It is important to note that these buttons don't exactly control our timeline, but their use can affect it. Similar to with the timeline, the yellow minimize button will send the window down to the dock, but this time it's just the movie window instead of both windows. The green zoom button here is a little unique. On older OS X versions, this button will be ghosted out and unavailable, similar to how my red button is here. I'm on OS X 10.10, also called Yosemite, and here I do have the green zoom button, which will send my package into full screen mode. Clicking it again will return me to my normal view. Alright, so last we're just going to go over a few key terms. This red tab and line that show where I'm at in my movie is called the playhead. The numbers counting up over here on the left are my code rows. My individual code and events are called instances. And the floating toolbar here in the movie window is called the movie controller. The specific options on the movie controller will be covered in another video. Last, we have our increase and decrease movie window icons. As the name implies, clicking on the icons will either make our movie window larger or smaller.